is an excellent article from Jake Nile about Aliir Aliir of the Sydney Swans and Magic Door of North Melbourne. It explores football as a great leveller and what it offers and brings to the different communities that inhabit its world. On the ground and shaking hands after the game, Aliir and Door are footballers. And Jake Nile describes it as a powerful cultural moment. In the article, Nile quotes Malcolm Turnbull at a United Nations Conference of Refugees, singing the praises of Aliir Aliir and how he's become a role model for multicultural Australians. He also quotes Turnbull from a 3AW interview last month, condemning the presence of Sudanese gangs. Turnbull is nothing if not a politician, although it remains to be seen how long he remains one. On the ground, Aliir and Door are footballers. Off the ground, though, they're not. The Victorian election is 3 months away, and politicians are now firmly in poll mode. Remarkably, in an environment with no wage growth, challenging unemployment, inadequate public transport, and unaffordable housing, the biggest issue that worries most voters is crime. Crime is low-hanging fruit, and the whipping boy is the South Sudanese community. Fears of Islamic terrorism seem to have taken a back seat, but no doubt those fears percolate just below the surface. Well, there are certainly elements of the South Sudanese community that are overly represented in criminal activity. But the blunt instrument of politics is deliberately insensitive to the welfare of the majority. Nile refers to a powerful cultural moment. Equally powerful, though, is the ugly populist truth of political expediency. Political parties are brands and share many of the characteristics of B brands. Certain political brands consider it politically advantageous to adopt an aggressive posture against a community or a religion. In the current political debate, there is little differentiation between one community and another, and so the crimes of some are attributed to many, regardless of how patently unfair that might be. It surely is short-sighted from a consumer behaviour point of view, though, to punish an entire community. There's a terrific cost in increasing the size of the police force or building another prison, when those funds could be used more productively elsewhere. But if you're the brand of law and order, well, then maybe that cost is worth it. The Western Bulldogs think otherwise. Under the guidance of President Peter Gordon, they've moved in another direction, fostering ties with the African community, hosting African-themed festivals, mentoring kids from African backgrounds from the western suburbs. To be sure, that initiative was not met with universal approval, but the club has largely ignored the noise and is committed to nurture a community that they consider part of the fabric of the Footscray community. The Bulldogs are a B brand too, and the consumer benefits accruing to them as they work to shift stereotypes and attitudes is no less valuable to them and to the supporters who express belonging. Political incorrectness is a 2018 cultural truth and displaying remarkable resilience. Political incorrectness is enjoying a wave of popularity and is an essential part of today's B-branded political parties with all its consumer behaviour implications.
Initially, when I started my course at Deakin University, I had enrolled myself for a weekend course without paying much attention to the course requirements. Being new to the city, I wanted to keep myself occupied and also use the university resources to better myself. As I had registered way before the actual date of the event, as the course drew near, I received a call from the department and they advised me that I would not be allowed to attend this event. I was appalled by this and asked them for reasons why I wasn't allowed to attend the event. It was then that they advised me that the event was exclusive for women, and because I didn't fit into the basic requirements of the course, I would not be allowed to attend the event. For the first time in my life, I realized I was denied education based on the sex that I belonged to. As my roots stem from India, a fairly male-dominant society, men have always been preferred for various roles and positions at work. Also, it is only in the recent years that women have received a formal education and have reached great heights. A vast majority of women in India have been subjected to domestic roles in the household. However, there is a huge variation in the way India as a society sees women. My perception of women have always been different, as I've always looked up to my mother as a person who's not only well educated, but as an individual who fought through many struggles to receive a PhD and go on to become a senior researcher at one of the biggest labs in India. Although I consider myself fairly open to understanding different cultures, I must say I was taken aback by this entire situation. I know I can speak for most Indians when I say that when we first land in Australia, we are all fascinated by the extent to which our expectations of change would be and the actual level of change we see. Usually, the latter exceeds the former. So, from a cultural standpoint, during our time overseas, when we are required to stay for a prolonged period, we forcefully adapt ourselves to the culture and essentially follow three steps in sequential order. First, confront. The cultural shock throws us in a spiral which involves questioning our moral beliefs and values. What may be absolutely frowned in our home country seems to be a normal way of life here. We don't essentially accept everything, but we try to understand and reassess our beliefs and attitudes. Complain. Just like how we are overwhelmed by the independence and the freedom, we complain about the same. Unable to cook and clean because we have been spoiled by appointing maids to take care of the house, right from cleaning the house, getting your groceries, and also putting food on the table. Confirm. Initially, we are all resilient to change and often take a staunch approach to our beliefs. But at the end of the day, we are forced to inculcate at least a few things that will help us transition into society better. Although I understand reasons for society to slowly transition into a community that is inclined to adopt equality of results as opposed to equality of opportunity, it shows that discrimination will always be a stronghold in society. And some form of political views will always be backed by these ideas and beliefs in a way that would seem dubious if we don't support these ideas. Thus, we can conclude that if we don't accept trending political views, we are seen as the outcasts of society and the masses.